rice milling clusters, or we have the ceramic clusters. Small producers may have also come together around a shared infrastructure, which is indeed then forms the transition to an industrial estate or an industrial park. And we expanding this concept, we see early indications of small producers coming together in a value chain or as a driver for a particular innovation of a product or service. In some while, historically, geographic proximity served as a driver for cluster competitiveness. In today's world, cluster competitiveness could equally stem from value chain or product and technology innovations. A further cluster interpretation is one driven by economies of scale for business services provision. As it is for various reasons impossible or unaffordable to advise enterprises on a one-on-one basis, we try to serve small and micro enterprises in groups and refer to this as a cluster model. OEMs are creating clusters among their suppliers for their supplier development program, and government and associated agencies bring disconnected enterprises together in a cluster to develop a growth program around lean manufacturing, energy efficiency, appropriate technologies, or zero effect, zero defect type of programs. Let me focus also a little bit on the specific case of manufacturing MSMEs, because that of course is closest to the mandate of UNIDO. Small industries are essential to manufacturing and at large and employment creation. Many of the large OEMs are ultimately connected to small and tiny industries as their second or third tier supplier. But so MSMEs, small industries, are essential, but on the other hand, they do not yet meet all of today's standards, market requirements, and community expectations. And let alone, they're not prepared for what may be required tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. There's an urgent need for small industries to mature, upgrade, and green, and thereby become a respected and responsible part of the economy, the Indian economy. This would involve then production of competitive products that are sought after by the markets, by consumers, operating clean and safe factories that provide decent work and achieve and possibly exceeding all applicable rules and regulations. I'm pleased to report that UNIDO hosted with the Office of the Development Commissioner a series of stakeholder dialogues during the second half of 2018 to debate these modernizing and greening challenges for small industries. There's consensus on the need for short-term actions, in particular in regard to improving information and business services, facilitating innovation and technology deployment, launching a national initiative or drive for productivity and lean manufacturing, and cleaning up of polluted cluster environments. On the horizon there, furthermore, there are transformative megatrends for which all small industries and its business ecosystems should start to prepare. And then I refer to issues like the onset of Industry 4.0, the transition to a low carbon and circular economy, and demand for decent work, and the global quest for responsible business conduct, transparency, and accountability. Indeed, UNIDO does look forward to support DC MSME, its government and development partners to achieve such transformative change in the small industry sector. We're here today to meet for the cluster conclave. I've argued that we observe two main cluster stereotypes. One is aimed at fostering long-term economic linkages between enterprises in communities, value chains, or innovation chains, and the other aimed at achieving efficiency and scale in delivering enterprise support services and programs or improvement programs. Both are valid and useful and deserve scaling up, to which UNIDO stands ready to assist. I wish you all success in today's deliberations to figure out practical and effective ways to achieve the desired scale up and speed up for inclusive and sustainable industrial clusters. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, sir. It's now my privilege to invite Shri Piyush Srivastava, Additional Development Commissioner, Office of DC MSME, to address us on the theme of the conclave. Sir, may we have a round of applause, please?
Respected Shri Arun Mairaji, Dr. Rene Van Berkel, Dr. Tamal Sarkar, dignitaries and delegates in the audience, and dear friends. the concept of cluster development got currency in the 1990s after the seminal work of Michael Porter. And in fact, I wanted to say something else before I go on to that. After the erudite exposition by Mr. Myra and Dr. Van Berkel, there's not much left for me to set the agenda for the theme of the conference. But nevertheless, I'll try and reformulate my thoughts and say something that should be sort of a peg where you can hang your picture for the rest of the day. As I was saying, the theme of cluster development got currency during the 90s, and the Ministry of MSME was, in fact, one of the first ministries of Government of India to join the bandwagon when we started the SI CDP program in 2003. And thereafter, the scheme was modified in 2006. Somewhere down the line in 2005, we also started the Spurti program. And now, subsequent to interactions with all the stakeholders and the people in the academics and also our field formations, we have modified the scheme. We have come out with a new scheme for which I'll get an occasion to speak in the afternoon maybe. But what we have done in the new scheme is that we have added some new components, we've made it more responsive, and we've made it more time-bound. The country needs a lot of clusters. This is something that Mr. Myra had mentioned when he said that we need to address the missing middle. Mr. Berkel also spoke about the cluster-centric need of growth. India is a country of natural resources. We have on our panel almost 1,300 MSc clusters, 3,500 clusters in the handloom and the handicraft sectors. Each of these clusters has a driver. The driver could be its access to natural resources, the traditional workmanship, the expertise that the people have in that area, the proximity to a big industry, or other such factors. But there would be a driver, there would be stakeholders, and there would be various agencies who help in performing the tasks of the function of the cluster. Now, our approach to the clusters is that we want to strengthen the feedback mechanisms of the various players in the cluster to instill predictability. If we know what the various people in the cluster, various agencies in the cluster, various beneficiaries in the cluster, various stakeholders in the cluster need to do, expect to be done, it helps in planning their own course of action. The second thing is that their response capability. We need to strengthen the response capability of various stakeholders in the cluster so that their output is enhanced. Third, of course, is the accountability. When you take an action, you should be held accountable for what you've done or you've not done. And the most important and the heart of the clustering scheme, the clustering approach, is cooperation. The players in the cluster have to be encouraged and enabled to cooperate with each other. And with all these objectives in mind, we have, as Mr. Myra has very rightly pointed out, we have embarked on the cluster scheme, where what we have done is basically to fix the responsibilities of each of these players. And the results have been encouraging. I would not say that we have been able to completely eradicate the we have completely been able to find the missing middle, but we are on our way. Probably that was the reason when the Niti Aayog in its new strategy for India at 75 mentioned clusters as an important ingredient. When they said clusters, of course, they had a slightly bigger picture in mind, and we are happy to note that, and we'll do whatever is required to achieve what was envisaged in the strategy. The two dimensions in the strategy, excuse me, the two dimensions in the strategy that have been thought of were, number one, that the clusters should be self-sustainable. This, in many ways, is an extension of what Mahatma Gandhi used to say. Of course, he used to say in the context of the villages, where he wanted the villages to be a microcosm, a self-sufficient microcosm. Clusters, the new strategy wants that to be a self-sustainable cluster. And secondly, they want to enhance the size of the clusters. So they talk about the mega parks and the mega clusters. We in the Ministry of MSME have had around 16, 17 years of implementation of the MSc CDP scheme. It has been a journey where we have learned something. We have changed the scheme. In the end, what we are looking for is that we should have a large number of clusters who should be able to contribute to the global value chain. They should join the global and the regional value chains. But there's a problem in that. There's a catch in that. It doesn't end at the clusters. We know that India is a huge country. There are differences which, of course, unite us in many ways. It helps us in integrating what capabilities we have scattered in different areas. But we have differences. Maybe they are in the spread of natural resources, maybe in the spread of skills, maybe in the spread of access to technology, the level of industrialization and modernization, and what have you. There are various differences in the country. So what does it mean? It means that it is not always possible for the units, industrial units or the enterprises to get together to a cluster. There will be some, in fact, a large number of them that will be left out of the clusters. We cannot possibly let them go.